All right, here we are. Well, welcome, friends here in the conversation and friends who are watching us live on Facebook. It's great to be back with all of y'all. So, my name is Sean Hayes, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And we are here for our 60th live kitchen table conversation with the Men and Masculine Folks Network. And that is a place where we are gathering men and masculine folks and shaping new meanings of what masculinity means to us, including being authentic, caring, and thoughtful. So I'm very excited to be here again with some old friends and new friends here. And happy Pride Month, y'all. It is the first day of LGBTQIA2S plus all of our folks in our queer and trans community, just wishing all of y'all a very happy first day of Pride, which is actually what we're going to be chatting about today. So I'm super pumped as a queer trans person, very excited to talk about what Pride means to me and to hear from these folks as well. So before we get further into it, again, my name is Sean and I use he, him pronouns, and I will pass it over to our friends here to introduce themselves.
Hey y'all, my name is Serrano. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm the youth coordinator here at Menace Peacemakers, and we're coming out of Duluth right now.
My name's Penty. I use he, him pronouns as well. I am a member of the youth team. I'm youth program support staff, working in the same office as Serrano, and so we are on the same screen today.
And I am Anna. I use faer and she, her pronouns. And I am the co-founder and vice chair of Trans Northland and founder and CEO of the Transgenda podcast.
Yes, all right. Well, thank you again to friends for popping into this conversation. Again, very excited to chat about what Pride is and what it means to each of us, and maybe how we'll be spending this month uplifting queer and trans folks. So I just want to start off by saying, for those who may not know, June every year is Pride Month. And so for the whole month, us queer folks, gay, straight, all of us can actually celebrate those of us in the LGBTQ plus community. And there's a lot of historical context for why this month is important, which we can get into a little bit later. But I know for me, just a quick story. I woke up and, it was like, it's a good morning. Didn't even realize it was the first day of Pride Month. And then as I was walking into my work this morning for staff meeting at Menace Peacemakers, it started off super well, because as I was walking up, if you've been to Menace Peacemakers or walked by there, maybe you've seen we have these giant windows, and a couple of our coworkers have been doing different displays throughout the different months. There was one for like Women's History Month, and that was the first thing I saw walking up to my work, was just these huge windows full of supportive messages, encouragements, affirmations of queer folks. And it was like, that's right, today is the first day of Pride. So it was a really nice thing for me to walk into, to start the day off. And so, I would just love to maybe open it up. I know, Anna, I'm very excited that you are here and able to join this conversation. And there's a lot that we could talk about here. So maybe I'll just start off with, what does Pride mean to you all, in your own lives and communities? And we'll see where the conversation takes us.
I can go. Pride is a lot of different things to me. I think the biggest one is that pride is a protest, and especially in the current political climate that we are in, it's important to remember that. Um, Being a queer trans woman, I face a lot of uphill battles, facing the patriarchy from a feminine side, um, from a trans side, from a queer side. And I think that there are a lot of different ways that you can celebrate Pride and still be participating in that protest. And I think the best way that I do it is by celebrating and uplifting those around me. So I think that's how I'll answer that question, Sean.
Then I can go here. I really have like a full thing, so I feel like as normal it'll be like vomited out. But so for me, I feel like for me, like pride is like a protest as well. So I appreciate you saying that. And for me to make it clear, I'm coming in this as an ally. So somebody who understands what people go through, but make no mistake, I don't like have to go through the negative impacts in that way. So I just wanted to make that very clear while I send love as well too, because that's also a part of pride for me too. Is understanding what people go through, seeing the love, like being an ally. Like I think I understand from my skin color what a form of oppression looks like, but in no way, shape, or form are we going to sit here and like trauma off or who had, I think for that, it's for me to understand what that actually means and what it means for other people. It means that people were not listened to. People were harmed in very many ways, shapes, or forms, like intentionally. It means that there was really no means of people actually getting better as far as like health, right? It shows like how we actually treat people that live in our world, in our country. So for me coming to it as an ally, honestly, it means for me doing anything that I can to be supportive in the right way, whether it's like being somebody who can still understand, although I understand I still have things that I have to learn. I still have things that I have to sit down and shut up about. And that's just like me. That's how I like how I like talk to myself. It's like, yeah, sometimes when you're not qualified, and I'll talk about that later, like qualifications of having a conversation. I think we're really big on fucking opinions and forgetting that these actually are people's lives. So when it comes to that, like when it comes to like talking about women identified folks, I shut up and I sit the fuck down. I just listen, right? Because I don't know what it means. I have no real life experiences to where I'm being negatively impacted as a woman identified person. Same thing with LGBTQ and trans folks. Like I sit down and I shut the fuck up because again, I don't know any part of what it means to be that or to know what it goes through. Now I have a lot of love, right? I have Sean, who's my brother, Will, who I started off this work with, and he's an amazing man, and a lot of people I've met since then. So I have love there, but I don't know, right? So I can't be like, oh no, this isn't right. You don't know I don't know what the fuck is going on, as far as like how people are being treated, how it actually feels. I can see it. I can get upset and angry, of course, but that has no compare to what people actually feel and what they go through. So for me, I specifically come into it as an ally. For me, I see nothing but love. I see pride. I see like being proud of like who you are. I see helping folks actually find out what it means to be proud of who you are. Going back to oppression, like, we weren't always proud to be ourselves. So if I can help somebody find those ways in which they could be proud of themselves, like I'm gonna definitely be that. And y'all know me, I work with kids. So it's been amazing to see like kids just kind of find that space to come out to me. Like we've had kids come out in like our actual group, in which I kind of look at that as like it's a test to what we say and what we mean. We say that we include everybody, we say that we love everybody, and we showed it. So working with kids, like I'm never gonna ever doubt anybody's identity because we know our own identities. So I think another part of that, like, and working with youth is like promoting them, promoting exactly how they feel, letting them know that they're not wrong. Some of these kids, when you're working in the school system, they got families and, people who are in their corner, who should be in their corner, who are not, right? So it's being that person who is in that corner just by understanding them and just by saying, yeah, you can be in here, you can be who you are. I think there may be like questions of understanding so we can understand each other and I can better like help you. But in no way, shape, or form, like, am I going to be judgmental? Am I going to be, the Bible, this and all this other shit? It's like, no, I see somebody like really trying to find out who they are. And I just see the happiness. Like, I don't see how people don't see the happiness. Like, how do you not see the glow when somebody loves themselves? So I'm gonna stop there before I go down like a hole. So.
And I can just jump on the back of that. I think my stance today is going to be just curiosity. I'm especially curious about that historical piece that Sean, you mentioned we were going to get into later, and that Anna, you had mentioned in terms of Pride being a protest. I think I have the celebration end of it in my head, and so I'm curious about that other part of it as well. As far as what Pride actually means to me, I'm in the same boat as Serrano, just in terms of not having any lived experience and just being on the allyship end. And so maybe Pride for me is like a chance to reflect on how homophobia and transphobia show up in my own life, and then how I call it out in the people around me. I think maybe that's a good starting place for me. And I'm sorry, is it Anna or Anna?
It's Anna.
Anna. I knew as soon as I said Anna, I was like, I don't think it's Anna. Right on.
Nice. Well, yeah, I appreciate hearing from all of you about, what pride means to you, right? Because it's different, and every single person, even within our queer community, would probably answer this slightly different, right? It's how we experience it. It's based on, our own experiences, whether as allies and coming alongside and supporting friends and family and community who are a part of our community, or whether you're a part of it, and there's just so much that goes into it. And I forgot to say this at the beginning, but for folks who are watching, we would love to see, what pride means to you. If you want to drop that in the comments, we'd love to highlight some of those things, because again, it's every different definition is different and unique, and it just, in my opinion, really expands all of our understandings of what pride is and has been in the past, and what it can be as we're, starting off in this month. And so, yeah, I mean, I know, Anna is a dear friend and obviously community worker alongside of me. And I know that you are certainly a history buff and know some of that. And so, not to put you on the spot, but, I could talk a little bit about the history, but, you may be able to shed some more light if you're willing.
Absolutely. I love talking about Pride because there's so much to it that people don't get to see and don't remember. I think the biggest one is that Pride was started by Black trans women. And I think that uplifting those voices and uplifting those people is critical to continuing Pride as a protest and a celebration, and all of the mixed and confusing feelings that it is. You know, kind of going over a brief history, Pride started in most people's history at Stonewall, where there was a riot, or not, well, yeah, a riot, but a police presence came in and started arresting folks, and the whole community came around and supported them. And from that, the event of Pride moved to a park that was nearby, I believe a year after Stonewall, and had so many different people of all sorts of voices and experiences. And I think the one that I most resonate with, being a queer trans woman, is Sylvia Rivera and her "Y'all Better Quiet Down" speech, which, if you haven't heard, I can't recommend enough. But Sylvia Rivera was a drag queen at the first Pride event, and is an amazing performer. So Sylvia Rivera, Black trans women, Pride is a protest. I think all of those kind of hit the historical aspects, and I'm happy to kind of go into more detail if necessary.
Yeah, I appreciate you kind of giving some of that background, because I do agree. I think a lot of folks have heard of Stonewall, and I like how you said like it's a part of a lot of people's histories, and also I think that there are probably tons of riots and queer and trans people in history who have stood up and have fought back against violent folks who would come in and try to cause harm to people in the community. I think about also one I learned about a couple of years ago was the Compton cafeteria riot, which happened, I want to say, even a couple years before Stonewall over in California, where similar situation. There was this Compton's cafeteria, was a local place where lots of drag queens and kings and performers would go to hang out. Lots of those folks were trans and non-binary folks, people of color. And again, same thing, police were coming in there and harassing folks, and people just said, we are done with this. We've had enough. It's time for us to kind of stand up and fight back against these powers that would try to eradicate us. Let's say that, I mean, and we've heard, right, that rhetoric in the last couple of years too, right? There are still folks who are, actively fighting against queer and trans and non-binary people having full equal rights as humans, right? So it's like, it's that reminder of the history of like, we have come a really long way since, the 60s when these riots were starting to happen. Um, and we've also gone back, and and so the meter is always going, and we're always continuing to do this work and to educate folks and to make our community safer for all of the folks in our LGBTQ plus community. And so yeah, I guess I'm thinking a lot about the celebration piece of it, and also I know that it's weighing heavily on folks, I think, this year and every year, but especially with the last year of all of the legislative attacks. We have white supremacist groups who are showing up at pride events, who are, intimidating people and trying to make us feel scared. And I know that that has happened here in Duluth as well, where we've had folks show up and protest an all ages drag show that was happening last year during our Pride festivities, which oddly, I don't know the history, but they don't actually happen in June here in Duluth. They happen over Labor Day weekend. But it's scary, and I think there's a lot of folks in our community who may be feeling some of that fear and not knowing if they want to go out and participate in pride events or parades or anything that's happening. And so I just want to honor that too. Like, it is a celebration. It's something that we can feel good about as queer folks. And it's also, it's multifaceted, right? There's multiple feelings that folks have. And so, yeah, just, what else is coming up for folks around this? I know I definitely want to touch on a cool event that some of us are working on called Trans Joy Fest that is coming up, which I can say a little bit about. Yeah, maybe that's what we'll do. We'll just, obviously, y'all know these conversations are organic, and we just flow where they go. So yeah, I don't know. Anna, would you want to talk a little bit about Trans Joy Fest?
I'd love to. I would also like to kind of comment on your, celebration. I think that celebrating ourselves and celebrating who we are and the rights that we do have is in itself a protest as well. And so I think that that's also important to remember, is that, you can be fighting for your rights just by celebrating yourself. Um, Trans Northland is putting on this amazing event called Trans Joy Fest. June 10th. It is going to be amazing. And yeah, we have so many vendors. I think last year we had 13 vendors, and this year we have upwards of 45 vendors, so nearly tripled. And we have so many performers. We have countless activities going on, kids activities. A bounce house will be there. Sidewalk chalk was really popular. So there's so much that's going to be happening. 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. downtown. Come check it out. We want everyone there. Again, it's a celebration as much as it is a protest. But I think Trans Joy Fest particularly is the celebration aspect of that.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I know just, being a part of creating that event last year, and seeing just the overwhelming excitement that community had around attending this event. And I know that both Penty and Serrano were able to be there for part of the time. So I don't know if y'all would be willing to share just what that event was like for you as allies. And yeah, I mean, I love when our folks, our allies, are showing up at these events and are excited and are celebrating with us.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely want to just highlight what you said, Anna, about I'm gonna try to say this the right way, but I believe you said celebrating yourself, like the inner you is a form of protest. And I just love that. I'm like, damn, it's kind of like taking the power back. Like, little do you know, I'm crushing all your bullshit opinions just by me being me. So I love that. I appreciate that. I'd say for me, yeah, I was definitely there last year. I would say the one amazing part right off the bat was anytime it's raining, anytime it's raining and people still are just there, right? Umbrellas pop out, people are just leaning off to the side, ready for it to stop. I believe it stopped raining a little bit too. But I think that is just amazing to see, just the fact that we're just still out here, nothing's going to keep us away, because it's needed. I think I live my life being somebody that I would call a team member. What that means to me is when I believe in you, when I believe in something, I'm a part of that team. So for me, allyship is a form of team. And there's days where you're tired, and there's days where you got to do other shit, but there's days where you also have to. I believe in there's days where you show up for your fucking team, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I think that's a really big part of me that just loves to shine, because the people deserve that. I love being there and seeing people happy. And it's weird how I'm in more of these spaces where people aren't straight, and it's I'm having better times. It's less judgment, more fun, more love. And I'm like, all right, now I see who the fuck I should be hanging out with on Fridays and Saturdays and stuff. Because I think y'all create a culture that is loving within the culture, and it's just amazing, to be honest. Because yeah, I would say the feelings of it is literally nothing but love. Obviously, I feel a tiny bit not outcasted, but not even outskirted, but I don't understand it fully, because I'm a cis heterosexual male, and maybe that also is something that I need to feel, right? That's something that you need to feel. It's like being a white person and being in a black space. It's something that you need to feel. You need to feel that uncomfortability and everything like that. So I would say, yeah, it's a great feeling. It's an amazing feeling. I just love I think me and Penty had a conversation about us being hopeless romantics. Not in the way where we just identify love and we love that it exists. So any place that I can go to where no fights are happening, actual conversations. There was musical. I didn't even think about the live music. That was amazing. Just seeing the rappers and everybody. So I think it's really dope. I think it's a time for people who are cis and heterosexual to kind of just look at that and actually see that these people are us. They are human. They are just as human as we are. They deserve the same respect and the same as love as we do. And they literally operate the same. They're just literally the identities is that they like people who just look like them, or like people who look different ways. And I think that is the part where I love, I just feel grounded, because I'm yeah, it's really nothing but love here. I really don't be having no problems. It really is, sadly, not to go too much on it, but it really do be in other spaces where it's bullshit, judgment, people ready to fight, and it's just yo, I would say thank you for actually promoting that. I can only imagine how it feels to have this day be a protest for you, and you're putting on for the community. Let's talk about that as well. Y'all are providing music, providing food, providing everything for people who actually don't give a fuck, right? In my bad, I'm I have a sailor's mouth, but I feel it comes out of love. But in reality too, it's yeah, y'all really put on for people who don't care sometimes, and people who aren't trying to listen, to people who aren't trying to understand. So I'd say amazing feeling, like nothing but love. And I will be doing Tai Chi as I did last year there again too. So
yeah, and I think this is just going to be our order of operations today. It's yeah, it was dope last year. I mean, I think I've like got my own thing about like people never getting together outside in Duluth and yada yada. Like, I think I'm just stoked whenever there's an event happening outside with kids running around and food. Trans Joy Fest last year was totally that. And it was like really cool to have this experience of, getting to I was like running back to the office to go grab something to bring back to Trans Joy Fest, and ran into a buddy who I hadn't seen in a while, and was able to be like, oh, yo, like this is going on right now. You should head over there. Like just like having a space that I felt like I felt no hesitation about directing someone to was really cool. So good for that reason. Also just really cool to have like a space where queer people can be outside and visible in Duluth. And it's just like also like a really good thing for other people in Duluth to be like here are other people that live in our city. And also just coming from the standpoint of like being like pretty chicken about like personally being like pretty chicken about like appearance, about like all sorts of stuff, like the chops it takes to, I can't even imagine the chops it takes to be outside exactly as you really are. Like that I think is really, really cool. And so just like the amount of bravery outside at Trans Joy Fest is sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think about, in March, we just celebrated Transgender Day of Visibility. And I think about, what you're bringing up there, Penty, is like the bravery and courage it takes for people to be visible, to be out, to come out, and we know that coming out is not just a one-time thing, right? Queer and trans folks, I feel like, at least for me, I'm constantly coming out in new and different spaces that I'm coming in and out of. And I also think like a cool thing about Trans Joy Fest and some of these Pride events is that, folks who are not as visible, who are not as out, are able to come into those spaces as well, and to really get to experience that joy and that just sense of connection within community, right? Like, especially I think of folks who are not out, for safety reasons. They can't come out without, something terrible happening, or their family disowning them, or being excommunicated from their church, whatever it is. And so I just want to say to those folks, like, this is for you too. And you don't need to be showing up wearing a trans flag, like just come as you are and experience the interconnection and the good that a lot of us, right? There's like 15 to 20-ish people who have been a part of planning this year's event. And so that y'all, all queer folks, all trans folks, young, old, we have activities that are going to be happening for everyone, and in between there too. And just there's something about knowing like it's a safe space to really just come in and be your whole self, whether your whole self is, I'm an ally and I'm here because I love my queer friends and brothers and sisters and relatives, or you're part of the community, right? And we get to just fully authentically show up as ourselves. There's nothing like that feeling, to really be seen, for folks to see you, and to, take pride in who we are, right? Yeah, I don't know. Other thoughts, folks?
I love the conversation and where it's kind of going, because presentation and gender expression and how you express yourselves are things that even me, a 3-year senior trans, egg, still is learning and experimenting with. Penty, I loved your comment of like, it takes a lot of bravery to show up as yourself out in public, or even just, I think even in private, having gone through a lot of this, it's really challenging to present yourself to yourself. And using an example of myself, so part of my gender identity and gender expression is fae, the fairy folk, and I've been keeping a pair of elf ears in my purse to try and express that and feel that, and really experiment with my own gender expression. And I think that that's something that everyone should be doing, whether you are cisgender, transgender, questioning, gender expansive, gender nonconforming, whatever it might be. Expression and how you present and who you are all things that should be played with and should be experimented with and should be, thought about. And as much as it is okay to be different, it's also okay to say, hey, no, this all checks out. I'm a cisgender man and this is how I want to present, and that's all good. And also it's okay to not figure it out. It's okay to be questioning. It's okay to come to these events and be like, I'm not sure if I'm a part of the community or if I'm an ally or if, whatever. That's totally okay too. We want those people at Trans Joy Fest and at Pride just as much as all of the people who are out and confident in their identities, because guess what? We were all at that questioning phase as well. And whether you end up being like, nope, I am a cisgender heterosexual person, but I love the queer community. That's the ultimate goal. We need more allies, as well as we need more queer people to feel comfortable to come out.
Yes, I'm just echoing. I'm loving this conversation as well. And yeah, I appreciate you, Anna, sharing about that fair, part of your identity, right? Like, because we don't all just fit in one nice, neat box, right? Like, our identities are so multifaceted, whether it's we're talking about our gender, our sexual orientation, or affectional preferences, or our hobbies and the things that bring us joy in life, right? Like, I think that's one of the cool things that we really try to center within this event, Trans Joy Fest, as well as I think in larger Pride spaces, whether it's here in Duluth when that Pride is happening over Labor Day weekend. So mark your calendars for that. Love to see you at the local Duluth Superior Pride events. It's just so important, I think, to showcase like queer and trans excellence and the cool things that all of us are doing. Anna, I think about you and this podcast that you started. I'd love to hear you share a little bit more about that, but it's like, there's just not one way to show up and be trans at Trans Joy Fest. Like, we are very strongly, focusing and centering our folks doing what they love to do. It's not just like you're going to show up and get like a, educational training. Here's what it means to be queer and trans, and here's how you can be an ally. No, it's like centering folks like Anna and Cam, who do the Transgenda podcast, and they will be there doing a live podcast. We also have, I think about Celeste, a friend who's based in the Twin Cities, who, she's a mother, a parent to a younger non-binary kid, and she wrote this book called As I Am, which I actually just legit read that to my kiddo last night, and every time she gets to pick books for bedtime, and legit every night that, that I've been with her these last couple of weeks, that's one of the ones that she picks, and so Celeste will be there and we'll be reading this story. We also have so many trans and gender nonconforming drag performers who are going to be there. And that's, I think that's something that is coming up a lot too. There are bans on drag shows and just being out in public. Like, being gender nonconforming, whether you're a trans person or a queer person. There are many, many states right now that are trying to basically ban our community from being out in the public, and are making it even more dangerous for our folks, right, to really to be who they are. And so I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to live in one of those states, right, where folks are literally having to flee, and to move and to get away from these places and these people, who have power to really make life hard for queer folks. And so, you know, I think about Minnesota being sort of a refuge amidst a lot of states around us who are sort of rolling back those rights. And for folks who are not in Minnesota right now, who may see this conversation, you are welcome and invited to come here. You know, and especially Duluth. You know, all of us on this conversation are in Duluth, live here. This is our community, and every single one of us deeply cares about how we can make this community safer for all of us, and how we can really celebrate every single person, whether you're 6 years old and you know want to just come and bounce in the bouncy house, or if you're an elder, right? Who, you know, I think a lot about our elders who have never really had the ability to be out and to be visible, and so that was another thing I really wanted to do, was invite our elders and to ask them what would they like to see at this event. And so yeah, it's a whole lot. It feels really heavy when I think about, the world, this country specifically, and how it is targeting our folks, in the queer community. And also, like, we are continuing to shine and show up and say fuck you to the people who, you know, don't want to see us and don't, you know, want to be a part of our community. That's fine, right? Like, I don't need everyone to agree with me or to accept me or even to tolerate me, but like, don't come after me. Don't, you know, try to cause more violence in our lives.
You know, I have a question about like the heavy stuff, if it's all right. I like when you're talking about whatever it is, if it's legislation that's happening nationally, that is aimed at, I don't know what that's aimed at, if it's aimed at, you know, making it illegal or punishable, to be visibly queer or trans or whatever. I think I'm interested to know, like, I know that a lot of times when stuff like that gets pushed, it's getting like kind of pushed by like proxy. And so there's like things that they're maybe like, you know what I mean? Like they're like, this thing is now illegal. And so that they can make being trans illegal without ever having to name that that's what's going on. And that's like a big thing. I feel like it's really good to know what those things are. So I don't know, either nationally or in your own lives or right here in Duluth, like what are the things that you see as being like directly under attack? Like what's actually being picked out?
I love this question so much, and I was hoping that we would get into this a little bit. So many places are going right up to the line of saying you can't be trans in our state or you're going to go to prison. And they are doing that through a lot of different measures. Part of what they're trying to do is banning trans women from participating in women's sports. That's kind of the biggest one of the bigger conversations. Banning drag story time and like story hours is really big. That can target especially trans women. And a lot of these legislation do. I heard a TikTok of a cisgender drag queen who is like, what I'm doing in my performance is completely okay. But if I have a masculine person who is a drag queen who wants to do the same thing, that's illegal. And so, you know, like these conversations are important. And I would say that what are the things that are under attack most in nationally, everything. Bathrooms, where can we go pee? Where can we go take a dump? Where can we go, to live our lives? What sports can we play, and where and who can we play against, if we can play them at all? Where can we exist? A lot of these states are starting to put bans on hormone therapies and surgeries and things. And I've now been on hormones for about 3 years. If my hormones are taken away, that is putting my life at risk. And so these are really complicated issues that are being dealt with by flippant and arrogant and bigoted assholes. Pardon my language. In Minnesota and sort of Duluth as a whole, I think our biggest issue is that we're fighting against is ignorance. And I don't mean that in like a deliberate ignorant way. I mean that more in a, yes, we have this trans refuge bill, which allows trans people to come to Minnesota to seek care, to not be able to be persecuted by their home states, to do all of this, but we don't have the infrastructure to support those people. We don't have the infrastructure to support the trans people who might be coming here. Even in Duluth, I love Duluth, and I like to say that we are a trans mecca. But to all of the people who might want to come here, like, yes, you are safe here. Yes, your rights are better protected here than a lot of places, but you also have to make the right moves for you. And we have Mayo Clinic, which provides gender affirming care, and that is about it. In the state. So, really consider your options, and make sure that the choices and decisions that you make are going to be the best for you and your family. And I think the biggest one that I've kind of been saving for last is the attack on trans kids, especially. Parents who provide trans affirming care to trans children, are being heavily, heavily under attack, faced with prison time for just allowing their children to express how they want to, and it's from a place of ignorance and fear and bigotry. Um, but these conversations are happening, and they're attacking our youth, um, in and the people who care about our youth most. Serrano and Penty and Sean, I know from personal experience, like, all of us on this call really care about youth and kids, and these trans kids need our support more than anything right now. And so, yes, think about what is best for you and your family. But if right now all you need is a space to get safe, Minnesota is probably that best spot right now. And Duluth especially, we have a really strong trans community here. So come and share our joy. Come and be safe with us, because we're safer as community.
I could not agree more. And I thought this comment was timely from friend and fellow board member Kia Ronning. And just how important it is for allies to be in these spaces, to be at Pride, to come to Trans Joy Fest, to show up at the protests and the parades. Because the power that y'all hold as being cisgender heterosexual people in this country, there is a lot of privilege and power that y'all get to hold, right? And of course there's multiple identities that we hold, right? It's not just we're an ally or this or that, like, right? We are many things, but just that comment made me think of, just last week, there was a trans joy drag show that was put on here in Duluth, by the incredible Alice, who founded the queer theater production called Zenith City Horror. And it was not at a gay bar, it was at this cider place in town. And I remember just putting out the word to folks. I was like, I need to be at this show. Like, I need to experience some trans joy and be with my people, and just sending out texts and like, hey, you know, do you want to come with? I'm going to this show. And, you know, to have Serrano show up that night, you know, and be there, and get to experience, you know, what that community feels like, what those shows feel like the acceptance, the support, the humor. You know, it's not all just like fun and games, but, you know, like just really getting to see our folks perform, and like, and just be in all of their beautiful queer and trans glory. And then to have friends who are allies, to, you know, be sitting right next to me and cheering, and, you know, giving dollars and tips to these folks. Like, it, I know for me, it makes me feel safer to know that my people, you know, who are not a part of the queer community, are there and are excited to be there and show up, and to hold space with us. And yeah, just the power that y'all have to like speak up when you're hearing people talk badly or disparage queer folks. Or, you know, I just was talking to a friend who was sharing that they had come into contact with a couple of, you know, older lesbian women who were sort of disparaging trans women, and had to say, I'm going to stop you right there. We're not gonna do that here, right? And that is so powerful. That takes a minute of an ally's time, right, to say, nope, that's not okay with me. We're not gonna do that here. You're not gonna do that around me. That is so meaningful, right? Because I think, Anna, you know, you and I, we do so much of this work all the time, and it can get exhausting, right? And we need our friends and allies to come alongside.
A minute of an ally's time can save years of a trans person's life. You know, I'm so lucky to have a supportive father, who I do my podcast with, Cam, and he has saved me from so many hate comments and so much wasted energy on people who don't matter and don't care. And so, you know, like it really is. Allies need to step up and say this is not okay, and recognize when things aren't okay, and call each other out. It's things that we have heard and talked about and said for years and years and years, but it really is how it needs to happen. And calling out behaviors of other people is one of the biggest things that allies can do to support the people who they care about most.
Yeah, I think you're right to Sean's point and to Kia's point, I think, and to Anna's point, I think in the midst of the world, it is a lot safer in every actual form, not even theoretically, realistically. It's safer for the ally to actually have that conversation than it is for somebody who experiences it to be out and about. And that is very clear. Like, I am not going to be more hurt. The person who is going to be more hurt is not going to be me in that situation. Mm-hmm. So I have to be able to have that conversation. And I think to Kia's point, like, that is exactly what we're here for. So I look at it as like two different like sides of it. So one side of like being an ally is like when you're learning, when you're listening, storytelling. That's the part where you like sit down, you shut up. The only questions you have should be like questions like how Penty's having, like actual questions that help you understand, and like the love and stuff like that. And then on the flip side, it's actually being that person to take literally. I don't know why, but I think of life as like a war zone. But it's like that, right? So for me, if I could paint this picture, I'm standing there. I got my war parade on, I'm ready. But y'all are just right behind me, and not in a way where I'm taking it from me, but in a way where if somebody's gonna get hit, I'll take that in that moment. So you're behind me. I'm a little taller, so but you're behind me and you're yelling over my shoulder because your experience is what actually matters. So you're yelling over my shoulder, but nothing can go through me to get to you in a negative way. So I think about it like that too, because it's like, yeah, in protest, in real life, like that's who we have to be. When you say you're part of that team, when you say you have that role, that's who you have to be. So that's what I envision. Like, I'm in the front, not like in the front as far as like experience, but in the front as far as like who's going to get hurt. I'd rather get hurt as being an ally, because like you're already getting hurt. Like, you're already hurt by us fucking being here, like, well, us being and having this situation. So that is really how I envision that second part of it. It's like, no, I'm in the front or you're on the side. You're yelling over my shoulder to on the only reason why I'm standing in front of you is to protect. That is all. Not to speak to it, not to talk about how I feel, not to talk about anything. I'm literally just there as like a body of a shield. Because again, like I think about the oppression, it's like when you're doing the work of when you experience the work that you're doing, it's like a double, I don't even know what to call it, but it's like a double bullshit, first of all. It's double bullshit because you shouldn't have to go through this and you're doing your own work, which is crazy to me. And there needs to be more love to folks that do that work as well. So that's what I envision too, like to Kia's point, is like, that's what it is. It's like, for me to be able to like, all right, the most that's going to happen to me is they're going to call me out of my name, probably say some bullshit. That doesn't matter at all. Like, I'm already embedded in my identity and I'm cool with that. I think so. That's what it means to me, is like, for one side, it's like, yeah, when it comes down to stories, listening, understanding, sit down, be quiet. Like back to old school days. Don't talk unless you feel that you was asked to. And that's just out of respect because again, we don't know. Right. Like I have a feeling of like when I talk sometimes it's like not really like landing. So I gotta be the person to be like, no, you have to listen to people. Like you have to be able to understand for it to land. And then the war part too. It's like, yeah, like you're fighting your own battle literally on your own, which is kind of wild. So I definitely, as an ally, will and ready to be there. I think about it. That's just my vision. Like, hopefully, it doesn't have to ever get to that point where, like, which I'm down, first of all, to protect physically. But hopefully, it never gets to that point. But that's what I envision. It's you screaming, or you advocating for yourself, and me being able to screaming that through me, while me taking the negative burden. Because already being in our situation, you already take that negative burden. And 10 minutes.
10-minute warning.
An hour is never enough. But that is just my little piece.
Well, yeah. Thank you. I had asked Serrano and Penty to give a 10-minute warning because I know I could just talk about this all day long. And there's so much, right, that we haven't even had a chance to go into, right? Like, yeah, there's no way that, and I say this when I do trans 101 trainings too. I sort of start out by saying, hey, I am one trans person out of many, many, many trans folks. And how I teach this training and what I share is from my experience, right? I am an expert in my own experience. And also, if it was Anna here doing this training, Faye might actually talk about things in a different way, right? Like based on her experiences. And so I guess I'm thinking about the fact that because our queer and trans community is so expansive, like we have really taken the time to think about our gender, about who we love and who we're attracted to. And I think a lot of folks don't ever have to do that work, right? A lot of cis folks. I know I've been in conversations, with men as peacemakers and groups through that, as well as Trans Northland, where we'll ask, how did you know, or when did you know you were a woman? When did you know you were heterosexual, right? Like these are things that are just sort of baked into our culture, that like the status quo is straight and cisgender. And I think the fact that us queer and trans folks are living our lives and exploring ourselves in this deeper way, it actually like expands and creates that space for allies and folks to go, hey, like, am I living my masculinity the way that I want to? Like, did I decide to put on that pink shirt today, or was I too afraid to show that part of me, right? Like, I think our allies can really sort of take our lead and like have that freedom, right? Like you can explore your gender, you can explore what your femininity or masculinity means to you. You can be open and experiment with who you're attracted to, right? Like I think there's just so many ways I think our society tries to box us all in to these very small black and white boxes. And I think we as humans are so much more expansive and beautiful. And there's so much more potential for folks to really just live into the fullness of who they are, whether you are queer or straight, trans or cisgender. Like, there's room for all of us to be our full selves. Is kind of where I'm coming to after this amazing conversation. And I know we've got a couple minutes left here, so I definitely want to give space for folks to kind of share any last thoughts, and then I can wrap us up.
I think this conversation has been excellent. It, as Sean was saying, this is something that I think we could spend hours and hours and hours talking about and have Sean and I together. So like this conversation doesn't end here. It's ever going. And I really appreciate being able to come on and have the space to share it.
Yep, just want to say thanks. I really appreciate the education. Nice to be talking with all of you.
Yeah, thank you as well too. Definitely like a blessing to be here to have like such great conversations and to learn as well too. So thank you.
Well, awesome. Short and sweet last thoughts. I love it. And thank you to each of you, I know Penty and Anna hopped in a little bit last minute. So just deep gratitude to both of you for joining us in this live kitchen table conversation. And one more time, for those in the back or the front, y'all are invited to join us next Saturday on June 10th in downtown Duluth at the Gitchio de Aking Park, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for our second annual Trans Joy Fest, and that will be for sure happening every year. Again, we just want to thank all of you, our viewers and our friends and community, for joining the conversation live. Thank you to all of y'all who are commenting and sharing what Pride means to you, and sharing a little bit about your experiences, whether you're a queer person or an ally. We're very grateful for that. We want to say thank you to our funding partners, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota, as well as the Novo Foundation, for all of their support and partnership in allowing us to continue having these conversations where we can share about ourselves, we can hear and learn about other folks and those experiences, and we can all grow together in really healthy, good ways. So, as a reminder, if you're new here or you forgot, our conversations here are happening every other Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let's see. Yes, so join us for the next live kitchen table conversation, which will be Thursday, June 15th at 12 p.m. Central Time. And we're excited. Felix will be back. Felix and myself will be hosting our final conversation about the Don't Buy It project and how that is all going. So tune in to learn more about that and hear from Felix and myself about that. And as always, you can find all of our previous conversations on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page here. Scroll down, watch them all. We would love that. And if you want to come and be a part of one of our next kitchen table conversations, we would love that. Or if you have ideas or topics you'd like to hear us talk about, please reach out. You can get in touch with a bunch of us at Men as Peacemakers, and with the Men and Masculine Folks Network. And we would love to hear what you want to share. So thanks again for joining us. It has been amazing. Happy Pride to all of you out there. We wish you safety and celebration, and get some partying in safely. And just, yeah, whether you're an ally or part of the community, take some time to reflect on, what does Pride mean to you, and how are you living that out in your life every day? So thanks, y'all. We'll see you in a couple weeks.